It's good to see you once more. Well, not exactly see you personally, but at least hopefully you are going to be able to see me. And today I would like to discuss a topic that is quite important for, I think, players at pretty much any level. So we are going to touch a little bit the opening traps. So you face them at any level, whether you like them or not, whether you use them or not. You need to know them. The very minimum is just to know and understand the most common traps that could arise in your own openings, so in the openings that you play frequently. I would like to show you a couple of those that I find interesting, and I think a couple of ideas are going to be you're going to be familiar with those, but some of those will be new, and also they will be quite important because they could be seen not only in they could be seen in simply great many openings. So let's just jump right into it. The first one I wanted to show you is going to be, it could be seen from the bishop's opening. And also in this stream I will be encouraging you to find the solutions, so find the refutations, find the blunders, and feel free to drop the comments in the chat box, and I will be trying to respond to that. Hopefully there will be some good answers. So let's take a look at that. So e4, e5, bishop c4. This is actually an opening that is gaining in popularity. So since people realized that playing the more common knight f3 move and reaching the Ray Lopez or playing the Petrov is already quite developed, the theory is not really making any significant progress there, and if black is well prepared, then black usually is able to equalize. So people start to play it. It's a more fresh approach, and now one of the main moves is of course to play knight f6, and the intention is just to fight for the center, hit the pawn on e4, also maybe prepare a d5 break, which is again quite a common strategy. After all, black is just trying to have better presence in the center. So white plays knight c3, and here quite a common and important tactical pattern could already be seen. So black decides to go for knight takes e4. It's not a blunder, even though some of you could consider this a blunder, because after all this is white can recapture the knight, but the tactical point here is that black goes d5. And in fact, recently, just I think a week ago or so, I've created an entire video also for Remote Chess Academy on the usage of this break in some other positions. So just in your free time, take a look at that. It's quite a short video, but explains some of the concepts. Basically, what black is trying to do right now is just to, well, the fork is obvious, so black is going to regain the piece that he sacrificed a moment ago. And for instance, after the exchange, after white gives the piece back, it's quite clear that black has a nice position in the center, especially that there is a pawn on e5 and white does not have a single central pawn. So it looks like it could be played. It makes perfect sense. But if we go back to this position, another standard reaction is to play bishop takes f7. And after king takes f7, usually you play knight takes e4. And as a matter of fact, this is mostly a good situation for the player who has put his king in such a vulnerable position, provided that you're not going to panic and that you will be able to sort of, let's just call it, castle artificially. If that is achieved, then you will be safe. But let's see what could happen if black misplays this position. So instead of the more logical d5, which strikes immediately in the center, this is actually an example, and in this game, which was a short one, black went knight c6. And Oh, I already see some. Sorry, I didn't see the chat for a moment. I was focused on presenting this. I will answer your questions in just a second. So, knight c6. Already you can start thinking how to play this position from white. This is quite a first line. And Sandra Liao, how to play. I assume this is against 1d4 as black. Well, it depends. It depends on what sort of an opening you're trying to get. We're going to take a look at that in a moment, and also feel free to comment on the openings you play, and if you have any opening questions, regarding opening play, so that we could maybe address those questions in the stream. If you have some lines you find problematic for yourself, maybe we can explain those issues. So if you're playing d4 against d4, of course there's a couple of reactions. You can play d5, then go for the Slav or semi-Slav if you want something let's just say more solid. Personally, I play the Greenfield defense, and I encourage, maybe not at the people new to chess should probably not play it, because this is a very dynamic and imbalanced opening, but those of you who seek for interesting positions and feel relatively comfortable with playing active positions, with maybe also imbalanced material, you could consider that, definitely. So guys, what would you play here from white's perspective? I'm waiting for your comments. I'm quite curious. What would be your reaction here? Anyone? Okay, so let's not waste any time here. I assume you're being modest, or this is maybe just too straightforward. Okay, Sandra, Queen f3, very good. Queen f3 is a good move. So in opening, often you are told not to develop your queen too early, because then the queen could be vulnerable. It could be attacked by enemy's pieces and pawns, and this is very true. But also we have a bit of an special situation, let's just put it this way. The black king is already deprived of the right to castle. It is not going to be so safe, so we're allowed to break some opening rules ourselves as well. And here black, this is just the beginning. In fact, black's position, to my mind, black's position is still perfectly sound, if only he, or I think she in this case, went king e8. This is compulsory, although normally the more common reaction is to leave the center with the king to go king g8. And this is what the black player played. But this is here a huge mistake. In fact, it's completely losing. And this is where I would like you to focus. This is a crushing move for white. This is just finishing the game on spot. So Queen f3 was relatively easy because this was a check, but right now you need to show off and find the winning continuation. So I'm curious if you're sharp enough to find it. And in the meantime, as mentioned, feel free to let me know what openings you're curious about, what openings maybe we should cover in some other videos for explanatory purposes, and if there are any traps you find often played against you and you would like to discuss those, again, we can do that. Chess Strike suggests knight d6. Let's take a look at that. This was the first suggestion. I understand the idea, which is very pretty. If black takes with the pawn, you give the checkmate in one move. Queen d5, have a look, this king is imprisoned, it cannot go anywhere. Brilliant. There is just one missing piece here. Bishop takes d6 could be played instead. And it doesn't win, instead you lose a piece, because on queen d5, have a look, f8 square is available to the black king. I can just improve my king's position. If you give a check once more, I can cover this check with a queen. I'm happy to exchange the queens because I'm up a piece. Remember, when you're up material, one of the most basic strategies to convert your advantage is to simplify the position, exchange pieces, go to the end game. With a surplus piece, you are going to win. You're just going to grab your opponent's pawns for free. So just strike. I'm afraid your suggestion was not strong enough. Knight d6, interesting, but I'm afraid the calculation was not perfect. Knight g5 is the other suggestion, and this is indeed the right move. And have a look what happens. The main threat is, of course, queen takes f7, but generally black has more problems than that, because the king is vulnerable on the entire diagonal. So in fact, what could happen is that white goes anywhere, d5, b3, b3 maybe not, because there's still d5 move. But for example, after queen takes g5, what do? I think this is straightforward, right? What do we do after queen takes g5? For those of you who just woke up and decided to start a day with a stream, this is a good way to wake up. d4. Do we play d4? Ah, no, this is, I think, a follow-up of for your previous message, Sandra. Okay. No, okay, so I imagine that all of you know what the purpose was. Of course, queen d5, checkmate. Again, the black king is imprisoned. There is no way to cover the check. Black loses. So keep in mind these ideas, and as mentioned, I think black had multiple options here. Perhaps d5 played at this point, already claiming full control over the center, and in the event of queen f3, black can go king g8. And on knight g5, there is a subtle difference. There is an ugly looking move, queen d7, but perhaps everything holds, unless I'm missing something. And in the next move, h6 could be played. This is just temporary. This is just maybe blocking the bishop looks ugly, but this is just a temporary situation. Black is going to strengthen his position and drive the white's pieces away, and only then improve his position. Busho1231 asks about queen f6. I'm not sure in which position particular. I think I understand right now. So here, queen f6, it doesn't change anything. I can play queen d5. Yes, I'm not giving you a checkmate, so fair point here, but I'm winning the queen, so I'm expected to win anyway. But good remark that if you want to play the game, if you want to keep it on, queen f6 is probably the right move here. So referring to your question, Sandra, I'm not sure if an entire lecture on d4 should be the case here. We could spend endless hours on that, of course. But if you're supposed to play with black against d4, again, there is a couple of options you have. I recommend, if you're not an expert, let's say you're a club level player, I definitely recommend the very classical approach that was taken, for instance, in the most famous World Championship matches played between Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov, the so-called Queen's Gambit declined Tartakover variation. So basically you're playing d5, meeting the d4 pawn with the d5 pawn, and play symmetrically. White then tries to reach tries to take over the initiative in the center by playing c4, which is a gambit. If you take, white just plays e3, and then, trust me, white will be able to recapture the pawn in most instances. So you play e6 just to strengthen your central position. White usually develops a knight, you also develop the knight, so as you see, pieces are developed logically so that everything is protecting d5. White plays knight f3, you can just develop the bishop so that you castle as quickly as possible and accomplish the development. Usually white goes bishop g5 or bishop f4, you castle, and after e3, which is one of the main positions, you can simply just think about the development of this bishop. As you see, it's restricted by the pawn, so we need to find an additional diagonal for the bishop, and therefore b6 makes a lot of sense. b6 followed by bishop b7, knight bd7. This is a setup I recommend to people who again are not experts yet, who want to find something logical, not really that difficult. I think this could be played by anyone. I play it myself. This was my first proper opening I played until I was approximately 2300 rated, so you could really build your entire career on this opening. It's extremely solid, and maybe there is no fireworks, but again, if you're playing with black, probably fireworks is something you'd rather avoid, because if you go for fireworks, it will backfire. Okay, so let's, I hope this was, again, we don't really have time for an entire lecture on d4. This is maybe another day. But I wanted to show you a couple of other interesting chess traps that you'd rather avoid. Is there any particular opening you would like us to do? Because I've prepared lots of those. But let's maybe take a look at an Alekhine defense, because this is something I really wanted to show you, and also you will be able to be involved. Okay. Does anyone play Alekhine's defense, or is it not popular? So again, we're going to take a look at this from White's perspective. Okay, we can take a look at. I'm getting messages. There's many messages right now. We could take a look at Scandinavian in a moment. I think this is quite interesting. Scandinavian. There is lots of traps in Scandinavian. So okay, but let's take a look at Alekhine defense in a moment. We're going to go to Scandinavian as requested. So e4, knight f6, e5, and we can. I'm not sure if I have anything for Benko. I need to add nothing out of just top of my head, but there is an interesting plan in Benko I can show you. So e4, knight f6, e5, knight d5, knight f3, d4 is an alternative, but it mostly transposes. Black goes d6, white goes d4. This is one of the main lines in the Alekhine defense. Black goes bishop g4, bishop e2, d takes e5, so black tries to release the tension in the center and fight for the center himself. And here knight takes e5 is played instead of playing with the pawn, so already white plays in a very aggressive fashion, and this is model play really. This is how you're supposed to react here. Don't be afraid that you're making a second move with the knight already in the opening. Despite the fact we already moved it, we're just trying to activate our piece. So this is precisely how you're supposed to play. And after the exchange, have a look that we're sort of developing a piece with a tempo. I think this was one of the concepts that was presented by Aaron Nimzowicz, the legendary chess player and chess author. He made a tremendous contribution to chess strategy and theory of the game. And he mentioned that whenever you develop a piece with a tempo, meaning that you by recapturing a piece, you develop one of your own, it's already a huge achievement. And this generally accelerates your play and makes you be more effective. Simply, you don't waste time on developing pieces. So black went here, knight b6. I think the purpose of this move was just to be ready for queen b5 check, because if you take a look at that, that could be I'm not sure Chess Strike if this was my system. It could be that he issued some other works. There was also the blockade. There was some other piece. There were other piece of work. He also published some of his analysis. You know, back in the days there was no internet, so analysis was published mostly in magazines, even in newspapers. So this is just a concept I remember from reading some of his work. So in order to prevent queen b5 check, knight b6 was played. And here white went kingside castle, a very dynamic way of playing. So have a look. Instead of protecting the pawn, for instance, with a move like c3 or even bishop e3, white went castle. And this is a very dynamic position, and this is also playing bishop e3 indicates that you understand a lot about chess, but this is not what a master or a grandmaster would do. Why? Because, for example, when I'm playing this position with white, I want to develop my piece to the most perfect square available, and at this point I don't even know where the bishop belongs to. Perhaps it's e3, but maybe f4 or g5. The problem is that I don't know this at this point, so I don't want to allow a situation where I'm going to play bishop e3 and only then change my mind and play bishop f4 or bishop g5 later on. So sometimes it's better to wait and find another useful move. Here this was kingside castle. And I will be having a question to you guys. Queen takes d4. What is your reaction? How do we meet that? Did we just blunder a pawn? Was it a sacrifice? I'm waiting for your input here. I will take a sip of something. It's really warm in Poland today. I hope you don't mind that. And when you talk constantly, it really affects the throat. Why not queen f3? Well, have you seen that the knight is hanging? You need the queen to protect the knight. Keep in mind about this. Okay, so chess strike suggests rook d1. Beloglavi sap, rook d1 as well. I agree. Knight c3. Develop again, also interesting. Knight f7, king f7, queen f3, ambitious. Let's take a look at that first. No, let's first take a look at queen f3 before castling. There is a way to meet both of your threats. So you attack here and attack here, but I can just parry that with queen d5. So you wasted a move because you already developed the queen on e2 and you played queen f3 once more. If you were, of course, winning something, that would be more than justified, but you need to pay attention to your opponent's defensive resources, because here I can just deal with all of the threats you've created with just this little one move, developing the queen, simplifying the position. I'm happy to see that because I have a bit of a problem with activity with space. So castle was much stronger, and after queen takes d4, first let's discuss knight takes f7. Ambitious, but after queen takes king takes f7, queen f3, I think I can just meet this in numerous ways. So first, of course, I want to secure the king's safety, so I think playing queen f6 just to provide the king with additional defense seems like a perfectly logical move. And you play queen takes b7, that is my assumption. Yes, you are hitting the rook, but the rook is well protected by the knight. So what I could do here, well, it's great many moves actually, but as I already mentioned to you, one of the best strategies when you have a material advantage is to exchange pieces, is to simplify the position. So I already see that the queen is sort of trapped. If I play queen c6, I'm forcing an exchange of queens. Without the queens on the board, my king on f7 is not only safe, it is also already active. Keep in mind that once the endgame approaches, the king should be more centralized. So I'm afraid the idea was interesting, but not perfect tactically. Let's just put it mildly. So rook d1 suggested by, well, quite a few of you already. This is much stronger because we introduce another piece into the game, and this is something that you should remember whenever you're playing. Whenever your opponent makes a mistake, you don't always know whether this is a mistake or not, but when you see that out of nothing you have huge space advantage, or your opponent made a few moves in a row with the same piece, he's undeveloped, then generally speaking, one of the best promising ways to refute that sort of play is to simply start attacking his king. If you look at black's position, one of the main problems for him is, of course, the uncastled king. The king is not safe. The bishop on f8 is still stuck on its initial position, so black is at least going to need to spend 2 moves on this, just to play e6 first, bishop, I don't know, d6, e7, doesn't matter, and only then to castle. So it's 3 moves away from safety. That's a lot. In the opening, that's really a lot. This is like 1/3 of the moves that has already been played. So we don't waste any time, and this is why knight c3 is... It's also a good move. I mean, it's perfectly sensible, but it's not as forcing, it's not as dangerous as rook d1, because rook d1 already starts to ask serious questions. Where, dear black opponent, are you going to put your queen? As you see, there's only a couple of options available, because the rest of the squares are controlled by white's pieces. So let's consider them one by one. First, what would you suggest white does after, let's just say, queen h4? We can put it on the board. What would you do right now? This is for tactical experts. So tactical experts there, this is for you to show off. This is your moment. So feel free to take a look at that. I know we don't have unlimited time, so of course you would like to see as many lines, I assume, as possible, but taking a minute here would be recommended, definitely. So I see some answers. There's bishop f4, there's queen b5, there's rook d3, there's bishop g5, there's knight c3. First, let's take a look at rook d8, because this is a very interesting point here. Rook d8, it's a nice pattern. We are winning the pawn, in fact. This is true, no question about that. But let's take a look at that exchange. Are we really going to be so happy about it? So we were down a pawn, we take the pawn back. Also, the black king is not going to castle. So that's, I guess, the pros. Cons. Knight on h8 in the corner of the board. Let's just maybe put it in a... Oh, that's how you make it blue. The knight in the corner of the board, this is definitely a sad picture. So a moment ago the knight was a perfectly active piece. Right now we need to, well, find a rescue mission for it, because it's about to be lost. G6, bishop g7, that's always going to be in the air. Also, we exchanged a beautiful piece. Our rook on d1, this is the rook you want to have. This is the essence of playing with the rooks, putting them on open files, creating some threats. And we exchange it for this ugly rook on h8. Was it worth it? Not really. To my mind, this is a bad exchange. So even though you win a pawn, you always need to evaluate the final position. So even if you win a queen, but you're going to be checkmated in the final position, of course you're not going to grab the queen, right? It's a different situation, but the rule is the same. You always need to evaluate the result of your line. So rook d8 is not correct. Queen d3, I get this answer frequently already by Chandan Kumar. I hope my pronunciation is good enough. Yes, I see the threat here, of course. The point is that here black is just happy to just start developing his pieces. I think knight c6. Knight c6 is just okay to protect d8 squared with the rook, and I'm just trying to reduce the pressure. So the other idea, queen f3 here, I think queen f3 is met with queen f6. If you take on b7, I'm taking the knight. My knight is surprisingly strong here. Perhaps you still have the initiative, but I don't see direct follow-up. What else did we have? We had bishop g5, and this is indeed the right approach. I didn't want to take a look at this as first. I wanted you to be nervous a little bit to see if this is exactly the right move, but yes, this is what needs to be played. So here, this is a basic decoy, double decoy, I would say. First, you lure the queen to go to g5. It's of course not forced to go there. By no means. It could go to a4, it could go to b4, but this looks already ridiculous for black. He made so many moves with the queen that it's really suspicious, at least. So queen takes g5, of course, critical if you're calculating any sacrifice. Obviously you start calculating with the capture. And right now, as suggested already by few of you, I'm not sure who was first. Let me double check it. I think this person should be praised. Was it Eric Groups or no? Chess Strike Cispal, I think, also mentioned bishop g5, but not the full continuation. In any case, all of you who mentioned this move, great, very good. It's you understand what needs to be done. King takes d8 forced, knight takes f7, we win the queen. Of course the game continues, but already we have a nice material advantage. So as you see, this is refuted, and one more line just to finish this, so that we make sure that everything's been discussed. Or let's maybe go queen c5. Queen b4 is quite straightforward. What would you suggest we do after queen c5? I'm curious about that. This is an important situation. Remember that you are down a pawn, so if black is given enough time, he's going to play knight c6 or knight d7, develop the pieces, challenge your own pieces, simplify the position, and put the king into safety finally. That's his strategy, simple but effective. So it's really about the initiative and playing, forcing moves here and creating threats. So again, I'm curious what you would do. By the way, as you see, in the meantime, let me just remind you that there is I've recorded an entire course on the opening traps. So, and today I'm just showing something completely different. This is new material. Well, not new because it's already been played, but I've recorded an entire course on the most common opening traps. So you will find, I don't remember how many, but great many chapters covering, I think, the most common opening traps, opening mistakes in, again, most common openings. So you will find Ruy Lopez, you will find Queen's Gambit, you will find the French defense, Scandinavian as well, I think, Caro-Kann. Lots of tricky stuff that that anyone really needs to know and at least look once. So if you're interested in that, there is I think quite a nice offer. Just make sure you redeem the coupon, and the link is in the description. Okay, so b4 is suggested by chess strike, b4 is suggested by awakening. Eric groups again. Bishop e4. Bishop e4 is not even a legal move. Bishop e3. Bishop e3, yeah, that just drops a piece. We just grab the knight. So that's not advisable, right? b4. I'm really pleased to see this move. If you're able to calculate that on your own, good intuition, good understanding, I would also say. The point here, and this is also my sort of hint for you, whenever you're calculating, it's sometimes you might struggle to find the right moves, right? You are told look for forcing continuations. Bishop e3 was forcing, b4 is forcing, but why would you sacrifice another pawn just to hit the queen? Well, everything comes with understanding. So here, of course, you would like to continue attacking, and in order to continue attacking, it would be nice to make a better use of this queen on e2. The problem is that in great majority of the lines, you cannot move the queen without losing the knight on e5. So what do we need? We need to achieve a situation when the queen is not going to attack the knight anymore. How to do that? With a simple deflection. We deflect it from the 5th rank, from c5 square, whatever you call it. Queen needs to go away. We sacrificed another pawn, but the pawns don't matter that much here. What matters the most is the time and initiative. And after queen takes b4, we can play queen f3 finally. So the move that you mentioned on a couple of occasions already. This time it's powerful because the knight is not under attack. So I hope this is understandable. And with this move, black is really, I would say, doomed. You cannot be happy with the outcome here. And in the game continuation, there was no, this was sideline. Sorry, this was a sideline. There was knight to d7, and after queen takes f7, king d8, white played queen e6, threatening to take on d7. Whether you take with the knight or the rook, you win. The rook, of course, is much more forcing. Queen a4, knight c3, and black played a desperate queen c6, but this was the only move not to get checkmated. Can we play queen h5 instead? At which point here we could do that, but then there's g6. If you want to make the line longer, you could do that. There is a nice idea, and you actually get to win the queen. But I'm not sure if this is that simple really to convert. We only have 1 point advantage here. Black has a ton of pieces, and if he consolidates, it might be quite tricky to convert. Just out of the top of my head. Okay, guys. So this is the hello paranormal phenomena. Glad you joined. We are more than in the middle of the stream, but of course you will still, I think, find some interesting information there. So what were the suggestions that you had regarding the opening we should take a look at? Bogo Indian. I don't think I have anything prepared for Bogo Indian. Any other opening you would like to see? I am not German, no. I'm afraid I am from Poland. Well, I'm not afraid, I'm glad I'm from Poland, I'm proud of it, but no, I'm just answering your question in the simplest way possible. I am not German. And I don't even know German all that much. Scotch Gambit, was it? I think it was suggested that we take a look at this. Old Indian. Do I have anything for Old Indian? That would require some research, I think. Maybe I have something, but I don't see anything on the list right away. English opening. It should be there. in a different database. Just give me a second. Vienna game. Vienna game is something I definitely have. I've just seen it a moment ago. Vienna game. I have many of those, and this is going to be. I think we could start with this one. This is going to be quick. Vienna game is actually a very interesting opening, which could lead to many quick losses or wins, depending. Scandinavian, right? We were supposed to do Scandinavian. We will do that. Don't worry, there is still time. So let's take a look at some Vienna first. I went once to Vienna, enjoyed the trip. So let's take a look at Vienna. But this time from Black's perspective. Let's flip the board. Okay, so we have Black's perspective. Don't get suggested by the names. I cannot change it right now. Just let me quickly erase it. Okay. So knight f6, white plays f4, and this is of course the essence of the Vienna, right? So you're not supposed to take with black with e takes f4, because then you will be hit very badly. So white plays e5, and after queen e7 there is queen e2, and the sacrifice pawn doesn't matter at all. Black needs to go back to g8, and after knight d5, queen d8, this is already very bad. I think white can just go d4, develop pieces very quickly. Jose, I think it's right, Jose Negron. I think that's Jose, not Jose, or maybe it's Jose. In any case, I'm using a laptop. It's Acer Predator. So this is really bad, and the proper reaction is d5 here. It's a common situation. If you recall the King's Gambit declined, d5 is also an idea here. You could play d5 directly, or there is also e takes f4, knight f3, d5. But in Vienna, the situation is a bit different. We already have the knight on f6, so right now we need to recapture with the knight. And there is d3 line, which is a very interesting one, and actually it is covered in great detail in the course, so I'm glad you're mentioning this. You wanted to see this. There is a line after queen h4, which is very, very interesting, and after g3 you are not supposed to take on g3, and I present very detailed analysis there. Very detailed analysis, and it's quite extensive. I'm using a couple of examples from Grandmaster's practice, so if you're interested in the course, again, you'll find the description with the promo code. But in any event, if you're playing this from Black's perspective and you decide to go queen h4, which is in itself, it's okay. The trap and the point here is just not to take on g3. So this is the blunder. If you want to play it from Black's perspective, it's compulsory pretty much to take on c3. And after b takes c3, play a strange looking move queen a4. I was quite surprised to see that this is such a powerful move, but after all, it looks that white has a bit of a problem with piece coordination, and black at the same time very simple development, because in a moment you could play queen a5. Of course, if forced, you're not going to play several moves with the queen unless you have to. But your setup is relatively simple. You could go bishop g4 because your queen controls the fourth rank, put the knight on c6, play queenside castle for example, and withdraw the queen to a5 so that it hits the pawn c3. I hope there is not too many arrows there, and this is the practical approach actually. And black is already on top. Black is slightly better. I've checked it with computer, but even for a practical player, I think it makes much more sense than going for the going for this knight takes g3 line. So again, in this position, if white goes d3 instead of knight f3, which is seen more often, if white goes d3 and makes a trap, you could play queen h4, but if you do that, then just make sure you don't take on g3. This is way too risky. Instead, there is also another line which is quite interesting. Chess strike, I don't think there is enough for white with the open b file. It's not an issue. It's just one rook, which is not going to give you checkmate itself. The king from c8 will protect it. I hope you can still imagine that position, but just quickly referring to your question and not wasting too much time on that. You just need to trust me on that, I'm afraid. So with bishop b4, we have a counter idea, counter trap, counter sacrifice. D takes e4 could be played, and here this time we start launching a very powerful attack. I think objectively speaking, this is already, well, I mean, for a practical player, very dangerous, and perhaps it could be played for white, but I wouldn't advise it. King e2, and now I'm curious. What you would be the follow-up. What is an opening trap? An opening trap is, you could define it, I think, quite simply. It's a move which is objectively not the best and is aimed at a specific line. Basically, you hope that your opponent is going to enter a specific line, and then you have a usually hidden or unexpected tactical solution there. Because I think we need to distinguish two situations. There are opening traps and opening mistakes. Opening mistakes is when simply you or your opponent makes a bad move in a reaction to proper play. Opening trap is objectively a slightly worse move, and you hope to outsmart your opponent just to trick him. Bishop c3 you're suggesting, and then bishop g4 check. Possible. Bishop g4 also an alternative. Bishop g4 is met with knight f3, and the problem is that we don't have the connection to e4. I mean, you could of course take it here, and after, well, then everything depends. I think white could maybe even play queen takes d5. No, you cannot do that, right? Queen e1 check. That looks horrific for white, sorry. So maybe just take on c3, and after d takes e4, I mean, yeah, why not? You could do that. I think white is still in a very bad situation anyway. Although as I'm looking at it, queen d4 possibly. If you take g takes f3, there is a pin here. White still has his ideas. What else did you suggest? First, bishop takes c3, and after b takes c3, bishop g4, knight f3. I think it transposes, right? After d takes e4, we again have queen d4. I'm not so sure about that. The game saw a more interesting continuation to my mind. D takes e4 first, depriving white of playing knight f3. How did I spot queen e1? Well, pattern recognition. You need to practice tactics. So d takes e4 I think is the strongest. We don't exchange pieces. Remember, this is quite an important pattern. Whenever you're attacking, simplification is not always advised, because when you simplify, you simply restrict your attacking options. You don't have as many attacking pieces as you had, and it's much easier for the defender to react to your threats. So here, even though we are down a piece, bishop g4 is a massive threat, and this is really the point here. So there was queen d4, bishop g4 check, and we have a huge difference here. After knight f3, e takes f3, g takes f3, what would you play with black? That's a simple question, but I need you to get involved from time to time, I think. Also, I'm going to take a sip of my drink based on the yerba mate, non-alcoholic, tereré with ice. So what does black need to play right now? Yes, I see the good answer. Bishop takes f3, of course. Bishop takes pawn check. That must have taken a moment to write everything in words, so... yeah, of course, if white takes the bishop, we take the queen. If not, we take the queen and then the rook. Very good. So this is this detail, as you see. With the inclusion of the exchange here, the pawn from c3 protects the queen. So it's... when you spot those situations, those tactical motives, always think about the differences, right? So I know we're sort of deviating from the opening mistakes theme, but I wouldn't be myself if I didn't discuss that. So make sure you compare the particular lines you're playing, you're thinking about playing. Just compare the differences, compare the whether they're loose pieces in both lines, whether the ideas you had been thinking about still exist. Maybe there are some differences which prevent your attacking options. So after knight f3, e takes f3, white played king e3. It already looks very bad, right? But still we need to continue that. We need to continue attacking. So knight c6, developing a piece, protecting a piece. That's how you're supposed to play. Bishop b5. This is of course far from being forced, but I'm just showing you how you could utilize such positions. So basically f takes g2, rook g1, and here we have a problem with the bishop, and I'm wondering if you are able to spot a right idea to continue the attack and solve all of your problems. I can imagine that there is more than one answer, really, because black's position is completely winning. In fact, I think the game continuation was not as good as what could be done here. Long castle, that's an illegal move. You cannot enter d8 with the king, even though you could think you're jumping over it, so technically you're not going on it, but this is not allowed. You cannot go past that square. Short castle. Short castle, possibly. The problem with short castle is bishop takes c6. Well, again, with such a bad king, you have all of the initiative compensation that you need, but why entering any tricky problems, any tricky positions? Now, guys, there is one line that finishes the game right away, I think, and there is one which is just more fancy and also does the job. So I will be waiting exactly 30 seconds from now, and if you don't find it, I will just give you the answer. Chess strike saved you. Queen h3 is one of the moves, and the point is that after king f2 you have queen f3 check, king e1, and then I think rook d8 should be finishing. It's just impossible that it doesn't. And if white goes king d2, there is rook d8, right? So with the pin, as soon as the king goes on the d file, we manage to win the queen. And the more fancy move is bishop a5. transferring the bishop to the right diagonal. So whenever you're asking how do you spot such moves, well, recognize the patterns, look at the board, look at the files and diagonals, have a look. 3 pieces on the same diagonal. Even if one of them leaves this diagonal, you cannot leave with 2 pieces in one move, then 2 will remain there. So if black puts the bishop on b6, I promise you white is going to have tactical difficulties. And this is somewhere where the game was finished. I think there were 2 more moves. Queen e4, bishop b6 check, king d3, queenside castle. And it's everything collapses here. It's just a miniature. And this is actually the essence. On one hand, when you're playing for the traps, you want to win in a miniature. But often, whenever you play for a trap, it's objectively not sound. So there is a move that your opponent can make which either equalizes or even seizes the advantage. And whenever you're defending, you don't want to fall for this, and you don't want to lose in a miniature. So that's the whole point. There is a different perspective for both of the players. And those miniatures are also shown in the course. There is many examples how lack of knowledge could backfire even in Grandmasters games. There was some Scandinavian requested, and maybe we could just finish with that. Do I have any Scandinavian there? Ah, there was also, wait, there was another thing requested. I would like to show you maybe one quirky plan in the Benko. Fajerovich Gambit. I'm not sure in this stream, which is about to be finished. I don't think there will be enough time. But generally, Budapest Gambit, not only the Fajerovich variation, it is discussed in the course in the course we're advertising. So make sure you take a look at that. Or yes, Angels also wrote made a video there. So in the Benko, there is it's a funny story. This was shown to me by when I was on Crete in a tournament. We discussed this with a FIDE master from Greece. So basically, this is the position in the Benko. And here, after a6, white takes on a6, right? And black could, of course, play bishop takes a6, but there is also g6. And one of the ways to meet g6 is a quirky idea. I will not be advocating for that, but this shows the details of black's moves. So there is a way to sort of start playing in a very scary way, with a caveman attack from white's perspective. And if black just goes bishop a6, white switches the plan. White goes rook h3. And usually, I'm not sure how what your knowledge of the Benko is, but black basically tries to put pressure on white's queenside on A and B file in particular. And rook h3 is again an interesting idea. I will not be advocating for playing this, but there is a possible transfer of the rook, and it is possible to at least eliminate some of the pressure that black could be trying to put on queenside with a transfer of the rook. So what black should be doing instead is probably just play d6 at this point to wait a little bit and control the h3 square. That's why actually often, instead of taking on a6 right away, black does this move. So if you're playing against a Benko expert, you will see that recapturing the pawn is often delayed, and black often does d6 first. And also, one of the other purposes that often black doesn't want to allow d6 by white. So knowing I think the general takeaway of this could be that knowing the proper move order and understanding the proper ideas behind the moves you play is very important in the openings you play, because if you just start memorizing the lines especially when you learn a new opening, if you start with a memorization process, you will miss lots of details. And instead, if you focus on the understanding part, even if you don't recall the proper line, you will be able to figure it out based on what you understand. You will probably remember that something needs to be done, and then you'll figure out the way it needs to be done. Instead, if you just focus on memorizing move after move after move, if one of the moves is not in your head, you will not find it. This is probably a practical piece of advice I could give you whenever you're learning any new opening, that you study the moves, of course, but also try to understand it, try to go through Grandmaster's games and do your own analysis as well. Try to think about the purpose of the moves that are played. Okay, guys, so I think we will be finishing here. I know it was impossible to cover all of the opening traps that exist. We only had an hour. It was just to show you some other traps that did not find their place in the course, which is quite complex. As it was mentioned before, there is I don't already remember how many, but yeah, 21 traps, most famous traps. So even if someone tells you in the club, do you know this trap? After this course, you will know it, and in fact, you will know more than them. And probably I should make a disclaimer. I'm not advocating for those, but if you play an opening, you really need to know the traps that exist there. Otherwise, it will cost you many precious points. Thanks a lot for today. Again, sorry there was no Scandinavian. I will be prepared next time, or maybe I'm going to prepare a separate video or separate stream on Scandinavian. You know, all of the content is for you, so if there's going to be enough votes for Scandinavian, I'm sure Scandinavian will be there. Thanks a lot, guys, and take care.